All right, welcome back to the training video series. Today we're going to talk about how to set a rat trap. Be warned, in this video you're going to see several rats in their last and final moments at the hand of a very skilled technician. So today what we're going to talk about is how to set a rat trap properly. Now, you've all heard the saying that you got to build a better mousetrap. Well, the truth is, since the 20s or the 30s or whenever these guys got their patent, there's really no better rat trap out there. When trapping for rodents, you need to make a couple of decisions first. You need to decide whether or not it is actually a mouse or whether it is a rat that you're trapping for. If it's a mouse, you have to use glue boards that are scented. That's the only real way to actually get rid of mice, because the smaller traps are limited in their effectiveness and they also only catch one mouse. Mouse infestations are found inside and they can be identified by their really, really small feces. So first you need to know, are we dealing with mice or are we dealing with rats? Now you'll recognize rats because of their feces. Their feces are a lot larger and they're generally a lot more plentiful. Also, if you see a large rat, unless it's like a very small juvenile, it's hard to mistake for a mouse because of its size. And in Santa Clarita, we have a lot of roof rats. You can also tell rats are present because of their nasty rub marks, which is their grease and their body oils that come off on the surfaces that they cross or they go around every single day. So look for rub marks, look for urine stains, look for feces. Once you've decided that you are going to trap for your rats, you need to know whether or not the choice to trap is the correct choice, okay? Now, you could set one of these traps outside every single day, catch a rat every single day, and never reduce the population that is infesting a property. Traps only catch one rat at a time. So traps need to be used indoors, okay, in areas that are inaccessible to children and inaccessible to dogs. If you have to use them in the living space of a home because you're not allowed to use rat bait in the living space of a home, and there are animals present, we recommend that you cover the Victor rat trap with a metal container or one of the other interior bait boxes that you can use for traps, okay? So first you have to know, are you dealing with mice or rats? If you're dealing with rats, what kind of trap are you gonna use? There's many different types of traps. There's the Victor rat trap. There's also the Catchmaster trap that's plastic. This is nice because it doesn't draw blood. They're a lot more expensive and sometimes they can break on their own a little bit, so we don't use these as much, but they are a good option if customers want to try and reset the trap themselves, because it's easy to set and to reset just with the touch of a button. There's also similar ones made by Jaws, by J.T. Eaton. Those are also effective. So, on the exterior, we use bait and we use first strike because you need to be able to kill a lot of rats at once in the bait stations, but on the inside, we use the Victor rat traps, okay? And I'm gonna show you how to effectively set these traps. The first thing you need to know is that these things come packaged in bulk in boxes of 20 and how to undo them. So whenever you suspect you have mice, you're going to use the Catchmaster glue boards. These are scented glue boards where if you take off the cover, and you smell it, it smells just like cardboard. Now you can lay them flat like this, or in some situations, you can actually use these perforated edges to create this nice little boxed glue board that can be placed and monitored wherever you want it to be placed. Now these can be placed this way along a wall, or they can be placed this way along a wall in a wall void. Either way, they're meant to be placed like this if there's dogs or cats to protect them from putting their paws where the glue is, because this stuff is really, really sticky. If you get it on you or the customer gets it on them, the only way you can really get it off is by making sure that you apply extra virgin olive oil to the area, or as you can see, it's gonna be a sticky mess. Now, in this little demonstration, I'm going to show you how to properly set the Victor rat trap the most effective way possible. For this, you're going to need, apart from the box, you're going to need a little bit of peanut butter. In this case, we've got some Skippy. You're going to need the rat trap itself, and you're also going to need your handy dandy multi-tool that should always be on your belt. Now, what you're going to do is from the flap of the actual rat trap box, you're going to want to cut a couple of very small squares, okay? So you're just gonna cut along one of the easiest seams and cut out a little chunk, okay? And then you're going to cut this chunk into little pieces that ultimately are going to end up being just like these little pieces that I've already created. They're anywhere between 1.5 inches to 2 inches by 2 inches. But you need to make little squares out of the cardboard box. Once you've made those squares, you're going to put away the knife on your multi-tool, and you're going to actually get out the pliers, okay? And you're going to take the Victor rat trap, okay? And you're going to begin unleashing it, meaning this little bit right here, okay, that actually comes out and can be discarded so that the trigger is free, okay? And then you also are going to, on the metal trigger, see this little flange right there? You're going to take this little flange and you're going to peel it upwards. So it's now sticking out perpendicular from the way it was before, okay? Once that's done, you're going to place this on the ground, okay? And you're going to take this little square that you created out of the flap from the box, and you're going to push it down onto the little spike. Be careful not to accidentally hurt yourself. Then what you're going to do is you're going to push back down that little spike so that this little piece of cardboard is wedged onto the trap. And the reason why you do this is because when you go to actually set the trap, okay, it's going to make the trap a lot more sensitive, so that when a rat comes along, okay, and actually wants to eat from the trap, if that rat comes along and it touches the very edge of the trap, then boom, it's going to get nailed. Whereas if you didn't have this cardboard on there, it wouldn't be quite as sensitive. So now this is how you actually set the trap. You have to be very careful and make sure that you don't break your fingers. So I'm going to show you the way that I set the trap. First, whenever you're holding the trap, never hold it with your fingers over the edges of any of the wood. Because if it's over the edges of the wood, then you're going to get your finger caught. And trust me, this will break fingers, okay? If it smashes the skull of a rat, it can smash the bones in your fingers. So what I'm going to do first is I'm going to hold on to the edges with an area where my thumb is easily accessible. And I'm going to first pull back the trap so it rests like this. It's all safe and secure. Then I'm going to place the trigger on this little edge of the trigger right there. So you'll notice that I'm holding my thumb right here, so I'm keeping it from snapping shut on me. I am my own safety. Now you stick it just like that inside the edge of the metal trigger, okay? If you want to make the trap a little bit more sensitive, you can pull that trigger outwards. If you want to make it a little bit less sensitive, then you can actually push that little trigger inwards, okay? Anyway, so you're going to place it like that, okay? And I always keep my thumb down there, so in case this flips out for some reason, it's not gonna snap on my finger. So anyway, you put this down, make sure it's good, ready to go. Then where you hold it so your fingers are not in front of anything, and you let it go. That's how you set the trap. The only difference is when you're doing it professionally on the job, you're going to make sure that you put the bait on first. So once again, let me show you. Let's say we're pre-baiting the trap. If we're pre-baiting the trap, all I gotta do is take my Jiffy peanut butter, take a little bit of that peanut butter, doesn't require a lot, and then stick it on the red, not the red, but the square of cardboard. Then I will simply place this trap in its location. That's all I do to pre-bait. If I'm now going to set the trap, I just have to set it as I showed you before. So everything's charged and ready. Now that everything's charged and ready, it's time to place the trap. Now let me show you the correct way of placing traps. So now I'm going to show you the correct way to set traps. Let's assume that we have these 3 traps here at a job site and we're ready to start catching rats. A lot of times you'll see customers take these traps and they'll place them just like in the middle of the room. Let's say this is the wall of a house and you'll just see a rat trap out in the middle of nowhere. This rat trap is going to do you absolutely no good, okay? Because first off, rat traps always need to be placed with the snapping mechanism right up against the wall. And the reason why is because rats travel along walls and they're going to climb up and over this, okay? Oftentimes rat traps can work even without bait because as the rat travels over it, they'll get snapped, okay? So make sure it's always up against the wall. Secondly, it's always a good idea to see if you can't put more than one trap in the same spot. And the reason why this is effective is because traps get used to multiple objects at once. If you can, it's a good idea to place a second trap about 18 inches away from the first trap. Once again, we're assuming that this is the wall of the house. And then if you can, actually place a third trap, but instead of being right up against the wall like all the others is, you'll notice that this trap I'm placing slightly back in a triangular configuration with the others. Statistics show that rats will come and in this configuration often get caught in this trap. We don't know exactly why, but if you can place traps in groups of 3, then you're doing a very effective job. One of the only things you have to worry about is sometimes if a rat gets caught in one trap, it'll snap some of the others. So make sure you put out multiple configurations of traps like this. But as long as you can do all of these directions that I just showed you, you will have a very, very effective trapping program. Now, the exact same rules apply to the non-Victor rat traps. There's many different types of rat traps that we use that are not Victor rat traps, such as the catch masters. Now, the way you set the catch masters and also the way you set the jaws traps, which are just like it, is if you want to pre-bait, you've got a nice convenient pre-baiting hole right here, okay? You can put bait inside of the trap through this little hole. Okay, this hole is meant for pre-baiting and active baiting. So when you go to pre-bait this trap, make sure you stick a little bit of peanut butter in that hole. And it's nice because you can stick it through the hole while it's not charged, so you don't risk snapping your fingers. And then when it's ready to go, you just set it up like that. So the same rule applies with these types of traps. Watch out because they can hurt you if you're not constantly holding back and applying pressure. But these are nice because you can actually step on them to set up the trap, okay? Now, the same rules apply with these. When you're going to set them, make sure that you put these ones against the wall, once again with bait inside. Set a second one against the wall, and where possible, set a third one up behind them. And that is a very successful trapping formation. Now, if you only have enough materials and resources for one trap, then try and make sure that you put that trap right in the middle, right up against the wall. As long as you can follow these simple rules, then you're going to have a very, very effective trapping program. So now let's talk a little bit about rat trap placement. There's a lot of science that shows that changing your placement can increase your effectiveness. As we showed you in the demonstration on how to set the traps, it's good to place them in groups of 3, with the final trap being slightly further away from the wall, always making sure that you place the snapping end of the trap towards the wall. But you want to make sure you place them in areas where you see a lot of feces and urine stains, and you also want to make sure you pre-bait. Pre-baiting is a very undervalued aspect of rodent control. Now, if the customer didn't want to pay for the pre-baiting, because it does take a couple of extra visits, then sometimes you just have to place the bait on the trap right away. But what that means is, if you can get away with it, pre-baiting is very effective. And what you do is you show up with the trap just how it is, okay? Fresh out of the box. Maybe you've taken off the little metal piece, but it just sits there. You will put on the little piece of cardboard, and it'll be sitting there, and then you place the peanut butter on that cardboard, and you just wait. You wait a couple of days, and you let the population of rats get used to the traps. And what'll happen is, when they get used to the traps, because they are neophobic, meaning they're afraid of new things, as they get used to those new things, they'll come to trust them more. And then you come back 2 days later, maybe you put the bait back on and you let it sit again. Now you're actually feeding the rat population out of the traps, and they get used to coming to it as a food source. And then on the second or the third visit afterwards, you will actually set the trap, charge the trap as it's called, and then now the rodents who have already gotten used to the trap being in their habitat will more freely eat from it, and you almost get a guaranteed kill. In the following video, you can see here are some rodents in an attic. We fortunately had a customer who had a night vision camera installed in his attic. At first he didn't believe that he had roof rats, but I told him it was roof rats. He thought they were so big that he was going to install a camera and find the possums or the raccoons that were making that chewing sound that he heard. But indeed, it ended up being roof rats. You can see them cruising around here in the attic, having free reign of the living space. So I showed up on day one, and I installed a bunch of Victor rat traps about 6 inches away from each other, because that's all I could do in the area of the attic. And I put peanut butter on every single one of those traps. And you can see the rodents come up, they get used to sniffing it, they get used to the presence of the traps, and they start feeding off it. And then on day 3, probably about 3 or 4 days later, I came and I actually charged the traps. And one by one, the rodents could not resist. And as you can see, they were toast. So, in summary, make sure that you always have plenty of rat traps, that you've identified whether it's mice or whether it's rats. And if it's in an attic or an area that is inaccessible to dogs and children, you place the rat traps appropriately in the configuration that you can guarantee, or at least up the chances of your kill. If not, make sure you put them in a metal container, and then make sure you come back regularly to make sure that you discard any bodies properly. If you have any questions, contact me or contact Craig or your supervisor, and we'll be glad to assist you in your rodent control program.